Tyler Reed had always blended into the background. He worked deep inside the Padnock's research complex, handling laboratory animals, preparing tissue samples, and performing countless routine tasks that nobody noticed. To the executives upstairs, he was just another technician in a white coat, replaceable, forgettable. Yet Tyler dreamed of something greater. He wanted his work to matter. That opportunity arrived under extraordinary circumstances. Hidden beneath layers of corporate secrecy, Dr. Patricia Donahue, the brilliant scientist responsible for Padnock's revolutionary breakthroughs, lay unconscious inside a restricted medical laboratory. A devastating stroke had left her body completely paralyzed. Machines kept her alive, but her future was gone. Only a handful of senior executives knew the truth. If news of Patricia's condition leaked, investors would panic, share prices would collapse, and years of research could be thrown into uncertainty. Ray Underhill understood the financial consequences. Dr. Hans Myson understood something even more important. Standing beside Patricia's bed, Hans watched the monitors displaying intense electrical activity across her brain. "Her mind is still incredibly active," he said quietly. "The EEG suggests enormous neural activity. It's as though she's trapped inside a body that can no longer obey her." Ray folded his arms. "So her knowledge is still there?" "Every indication says yes." "If that's true, can we retrieve it?" Hans hesitated. "Not with computers. Human minds are far too complex to simply download." But Patricia had been researching something else. Ray looked up. "What?" "Neural transfer." He paused before continuing. "She believed memories and cognitive structures might one day be transferred directly from one living brain into another." "You mean, one person's mind could pass information into someone else's?" "In theory. And practically." Hans sighed. "We've never completed a human trial. So the risks. They could both die." Silence filled the room. "Or survive with catastrophic neurological damage." Ray absorbed the answer. Who was Patricia intending to use? Hans looked towards the laboratory entrance. "I suspect she hoped to continue her work someday by transferring herself into a younger volunteer." Before Ray could respond, the laboratory door opened. Tyler entered carrying replacement oxygen equipment, completely unaware that history was about to change. Hans exchanged a silent glance with Ray. Both men reached the same conclusion. "Tyler," Hans called. The young technician stopped. "Yes, doctor." "You've worked here for several years." "That's right." "You understand the importance of confidentiality." "I do." Hans gestured towards Patricia. "The woman in that chamber is one of the greatest scientific minds of our generation. We believe her knowledge can still be recovered, but only through another human brain." Tyler frowned. "You mean, someone would connect with her mind?" "Exactly. It would require a volunteer." Tyler stared at the unconscious scientist. "What would happen to me?" "We honestly don't know." Hans refused to soften the truth. "The experiment has never been attempted." "So I might die." "It's possible." "Or suffer permanent brain damage." "Also possible." Despite the warning, Tyler felt excitement rather than fear. His master's degree had earned him little more than an anonymous laboratory position. Now he was being offered something unimaginable. What if it works? Hans smiled. "You may gain access to some of Patricia's knowledge." Tyler's heart raced. The knowledge of a genius. It could change everything. After only a few moments of thought, Tyler nodded. "I'll do it." Ray immediately stepped forward, shaking his hand with practiced warmth. "You have our gratitude." Legal departments moved quickly. Waivers were drafted. Liability protections were signed. Every document ensured Padnock's remained protected if the experiment failed. The following morning Tyler returned before sunrise. Technicians placed a woven cap over his head containing 186 neural receptors. Across the room, identical pathways connected directly into Patricia's exposed cerebral interface. Hans performed the final checks. He looked first at Tyler. "Ready?" Tyler swallowed. "As ready as I'll ever be." Hans leaned close to Patricia's ear. "If any part of you can hear me, now is the time. Give him everything." The machines came alive. EEG displays erupted with violent electrical patterns. Across multiple monitors, Patricia's brain activity surged from yellow to blazing crimson. The laboratory fell silent. Tyler blinked. I think. What? I feel angry. Hans smiled. That's Patricia. Her fierce determination had defined her entire career. Now it appeared to be flowing into another mind. Slowly the brilliant red faded to orange. Orange became yellow. Yellow drifted into green. Patricia's heartbeat weakened. Blood pressure collapsed. Her body twitched once. Then again. The monitors showed large regions of her brain slipping into darkness. Hans turned back to Tyler. Anything? The young technician stared into space. Then his eyes widened. I've got an idea. What kind of idea? A really good one. He sounded almost shocked by his own words. Please, get me a tablet. Within seconds his fingers flew across the screen. Words poured out faster than he could consciously think. Equations. Concepts. Designs. Entire theories appeared as though someone else were writing through him. Hans looked back at Patricia. Her neural activity vanished one region at a time. Blue spread across the monitor until nothing remained. Her heartbeat flatlined. Dr. Patricia Donahue was gone. Hans lowered his head. You did it, Pat. Tyler barely noticed the passing minutes. His hands moved with astonishing speed, recording ideas that seemed to arrive fully formed. For the first time in his life, thinking felt effortless. Problems that once seemed impossible now unraveled in seconds. He realized something fundamental had changed. He wasn't merely remembering information. He was reasoning differently. His mind operated on an entirely new level. When he finally looked up, Hans stood beside Patricia's bed. She's gone, the doctor said quietly. Tyler approached the body. He had never spoken with Patricia while she was alive. To him she had simply been a distant legend within Padnock's. Now she looked strangely peaceful. Despite her age, she had clearly cared about her appearance. Her fingernails were carefully polished. Her eyebrows had been shaped with precision. Her eyelashes were darkened. Long strands of silver hair framed her face before disappearing into a neatly tied bun. Years of relentless work had exhausted her body. Yet somehow, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that a part of her was still standing beside him. Tyler lingered beside Patricia's body for another moment. She had been one of the greatest scientific minds of her generation, yet even in death there were traces of someone who had cared about more than equations. Her silver hair had been carefully brushed, her fingernails carried a soft polish, and the subtle shaping of her eyebrows hinted that beneath the relentless scientist had lived a woman who still valued beauty. Interesting, Tyler murmured. Hans looked up from the tablet. What is? I've just noticed something. Give me a minute, I don't want to lose the thought. He tapped the side of his head. It's forming. Hans smiled. Then don't fight it. Every idea matters now. Write it down as soon as you can. I will. First, I need the washroom. Go. Let your mind wander. Whatever is happening inside your head, let it happen naturally. Tyler nodded and disappeared down the corridor. Once he had gone, Hans sat at the workstation Tyler had been using. The notes scrolling across the screen left him speechless. They weren't fragmented observations or half-finished theories. They were complete solutions, clear, elegant, and astonishingly practical. This was unmistakably Patricia's style. She had always seen connections that everyone else missed. Hans leaned closer. If these calculations hold up, he whispered, this changes everything. Without hesitation he called Ray Underhill. She's gone, Hans said as soon as the line connected. There was a pause. And the transfer worked. Ray's tone sharpened. How well? Better than I dared hope. Tyler has already produced work that could keep the company years ahead of our competitors. Ray exhaled slowly. Then Tyler becomes our most valuable employee. I agree. Move him into Patricia's penthouse. Hans blinked. You mean, today? She won't need it anymore. Arrange whatever paperwork is necessary. Ray's voice became colder. And make sure he's happy. Meanwhile, Tyler stood alone in the washroom. He walked towards a cubicle before abruptly stopping. For reasons he couldn't explain, it suddenly felt wrong. He turned instead towards the urinals, only to hesitate again. Why had such an ordinary decision become confusing? He rubbed his temples. My head. After washing his hands, he looked into the mirror. At first nothing seemed unusual. The same slim face. The same untidy brown hair. The same tired laboratory assistant. Then, without thinking, he spoke aloud. That hair color is dreadful. His own words startled him. He covered his mouth. Where had that come from? Another thought followed immediately. Not technical. Not scientific. Personal. His hair wasn't the problem. It was the style. The shape of his eyebrows. His skin. The clothes he wore every day. He tilted his head, studying his reflection from different angles. I've never really looked at myself. His features weren't unattractive. His face was delicate. His build was naturally slim. His hair had enough length to be styled differently. There was potential. The idea expanded with breathtaking speed. He wasn't imagining someone else. He was imagining himself. Only different. Beautiful. The feeling was strangely comforting. When Tyler returned to the laboratory, Hans was still reading through the research notes. Seeing someone sitting at his workstation irritated him far more than it should have. For a brief instant he wanted to order Hans away. The impulse surprised him. Instead he waited politely. Hans finally looked up. This is extraordinary work. Tyler relaxed. You think so? I know so. Hans stood. I don't want you exhausting yourself. Take the rest of the day off. But I feel like I could keep working. Exactly why you shouldn't. Hans handed him the tablet. If more ideas arrive, record them immediately. Tyler accepted it. I will. Oh, and before you leave. Hans smiled. I'd like to show you something. The private lift near the main entrance was hidden behind a decorative wall that Tyler had walked past hundreds of times without noticing. Hans entered a security code. The doors slid open. The lift carried them silently upwards. When it stopped, Tyler found himself stepping into a glass corridor suspended above the vast rooftop of the Padnox complex. Beyond it stood an elegant apartment unlike anything he had expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline. A wide terrace surrounded a swimming pool. The rooms inside were spacious, luxurious, and surprisingly warm. This was Patricia's home, Hans explained. Tyler wandered slowly through the living room. Books lined entire walls. Scientific journals covered polished tables. Family photographs were almost absent. Everything reflected a life devoted to discovery. We can clear the apartment if you'd like to move in, Hans said. Tyler shook his head immediately. No. Hans frowned. You want the furniture changed. I don't want anything changed. Tyler gently rested a hand on one of the bookshelves. I feel inspired here. He couldn't explain why. The place felt strangely familiar. Almost comforting. As if. He searched for the right words. You need strong roots before you can grow. Hans froze. That sentence echoed through his memory. Patricia had spoken those exact words countless times whenever young researchers complained about starting with routine work instead of exciting projects. Hans stared at Tyler. Where did you hear that? Tyler looked puzzled. I don't know. For the first time since the experiment, genuine uncertainty crossed his face. It just felt true. Hans said nothing. Instead he quietly wondered how much of Patricia had truly crossed into the younger man's mind. Because if memories had traveled alongside knowledge, then perhaps the experiment had achieved far more than anyone intended.